Hello, my name's Dick Fleming, and during the Vietnam War I was a member of Recon Batallion and then First Force Recon, and I tell my stories about my time in the military in a book I wrote called Chasing Charlie. Uh, we also have some information on my website, firstforcerecon.com, that you might be interested in. There's links to other resources in the reconnaissance community, as well as photographs that people have sent me or I took myself at the time. So in many cases they augment my stories. So that's firstforcerecon.com. My last video I left off, and I had just joined Recon Battalion, 1st Platoon, 1st Recon Battalion, which was stationed in Camp Reesner, um, outside of Da Nang, and I had gotten to know my future teammates, or my teammates, um, but I had not been in the bush yet. But after I'd been in with the team about 2 days, the sergeant came in and he said that we were going to be going out on a mission in a few days, and to gear up. That's what was the word he used, gear up. And he turned to Chief, the guy who was right next to me in the bunk, and he told him to get the newbie straightened out. Well, I was the newbie. Well, he could have remembered my name at that point, but he just said, get the newbie straightened out. And Fernandez asked him where we were going, and he pulled out a map of the area, and he laid it on the floor, and we all gathered around. And he took out his K-bar, and he pointed out it'd be fuck hole, and Fernandez goes, fuck you, Valley, I knew it, we're going back in that place again. Well, the previous day, Chief had taken me around and gotten my equipment. I had gotten my M16 from the armory, and drew some magazines from the armory. I also got a flak jacket. We went down to the supply hutch, and they gave me a flak jacket, a helmet, hard hat helmet. Pretty beat up, both of those, by the way. Looked like they had really been through the wars. And jungle boots. I got a new pair of jungle boots, which is nice, and actually two pair. One I could use for inspections, and one I could use for the bush. After a couple weeks, they got a new supply, and I got a third pair that I could wear around the compound. So I was set that way. He also gave me 3 pairs of utilities. At the first time, we didn't have the camouflage utilities. We just had the standard Marine Corps light green utilities that guys have been wearing in Marines have been wearing in Korea and probably World War II. And apparently, finally, we got camouflage utilities, that camouflage pattern on it. But it was only after they had distributed those to the band in Da Nang, so that the band could parade around in front of the general in these new camouflage utilities, or so the scuttlebutt went. I don't know. So anyway, I had the 3 pairs, and again, it was 1 pair to be put in your foot locker and keep nice and pressed, 1 pair to wear around normally, and a 3rd pair to take in the bush. Chief had told me, the best camouflage is a really dirty, faded pair of camouflage utilities. That's better than the new ones. And all of the other guys, when they took off their utilities, they just hung them up on nail when they got out of the bush and wiped off the dirt, and that was it for them. But I had now had the basic rudiments of the equipment that I needed to go out in the bush. And over time, I gradually picked up other gear that was necessary. I scarfed up a hat. Sometimes that was from guys who were leaving. They'd give you something like a K-bar or something, or flares, or whatever they thought would be useful. They weren't going to use it anymore. So it was just basically open. Other times, if guys had gone back to the States after being injured, the sergeant would pack up their personal effects and leave the gear that he didn't think was necessary on the bunk, and other guys would pour through it and take what they needed. So after a while, you got a little cache of things that weren't issued to you. And of course, you could buy things in Da Nang. You could buy the gooks were selling, the gook vendors were selling off Arvin packs, which are really good packs, and Tiger Stripe utilities. You could buy anything from them. It's just if you had the money. But this was that was the way it was. So the first thing Chief asked me was, if I knew how to read the maps, and we all had these new maps, and that the sergeant had brought in, and I said, sure, I knew how to read the map. I had been through Recon Indoctrination Platoon. I had been through Advanced Infantry Training. I had been through boot camp, where they drummed the basics of the compass navigation into you. So yeah, I felt I could read a map. And I actually, after I left, came back to the States, I discovered that I had one of these in my sea bag, and it's actually on a patrol that I went on, because I can tell, because this white area over here, where I put in some information, I had actually cut that out, because the only part of the map that we really needed was a very small section, maybe 10 miles by 10 miles. This is an entire province. This is Benyang province over here, and it might be a map that would be used by a pilot who's flying over an entire province, which is like a county in our idea of what it is. A helicopter pilot might be using one of these, and of course, they're topographical maps. They show the terrain and the topographical features that you're going to be going through. So these maps are very, very important, but you don't need. We didn't need the entire map, and they'd be awkward to carry. We only needed a small section, and in this case, I cut out this section. But looking at this map, I can see other patrols that I ran on, and I can see that they're marked by grids, little markers that I have on that gridded out an area perhaps 10 miles by 10 miles. I can see there's one up here, there's one down here. I don't think you can see it even if I brought the camera closer. I wouldn't really show you anything, but there's probably 3 or 4 patrols on this one province here, Benyang, in the Central Highlands. So we would take this little grid here and cut it out and put it in. Chief told me how to do this. Put it into a plastic bag, then seal the bag with tape. After we had done one further thing to it, and that's create the grid marks, the zone that the sergeant had told us we'd be patrolling in. And the reason we needed that was normally this map is marked in latitude and longitude. That's, you know, degrees, minutes, seconds, you know, of latitude and longitude. That's typical for a topographical map. If you're hiking or something like that, you know, that's the way you'd refer to your position. You know, you go left to right and up to down and top to bottom and find your position, and you'd record it by giving the amount of degrees, minutes, and seconds north or south of the equator that you'd be going. So when I was a main guide after I got out of the service for a while, and we used to use these latitude and longitude measurements to determine our position or to record our position. There's also a couple of other ways you can do this. There's a military standard that you could use that's slightly different. There's a decimal standard instead of, well, I'm not going to go into that. I can talk for quite a while on the different navigational methods, but we used a very simple one, and this is the grid that we used. We created a grid on that 10-mile pattern, and we broke it up into numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, etc., and going down. So if we wanted to determine our position at any point, we didn't have to bother with all that latitude and longitude, because a copy of this was in the intelligence shed. For each patrol that went out, they had a copy of our map, and then this grid system interposed over the map. So if somebody wanted, for example, to find that location, which I marked with an X there, all they had to do was to go left to right and top to bottom. And when we were reporting our position, we go sit rep, position report 2-3. Well, the North Vietnamese, even if they were listening, they wouldn't have that grid, so 2-3 wouldn't mean anything to them. But boy, if we ever gave them our latitude and longitudes, I'm sure they had copies of our maps, because I was told that in another team with a new sergeant, first patrol for that new sergeant, he gave the latitude and longitude coordinates, and within a half an hour, that team had been compromised and they had to be extracted, emergency extraction. They knew exactly where they were. So this was why we used the grid system. And Chief told me to put that in a plastic and to keep that in my upper breast pocket there, so I would know exactly where I was at all times, and I could refer to it easily. And it was encased in plastic, because if you took a map like this and in the rain, within a few minutes it would be useless. It'd be a soggy mess, and all of these lines would be blurred. You wouldn't be able to know where you were. And really important to know at all times exactly where we were, because even if the lieutenant had gotten, the sergeant or the lieutenant or whoever was running the patrol had gotten hurt, the rest of us had to know where we were. So we had to call in the position report and to be extracted. So it was really important to know our location at all times. And Chief impressed that on me. He was dead serious on all of these matters. He wanted he wasn't screwing around when he went over things with me. So he went over to my bunk and he said, do you got anything in your backpack? I said, well, yeah, I got stuff in there. I started preparing it, and he took my pack and he turned it over on my cot, and out came all the stuff that I thought I'd be using in the field. Toothpaste, soap, I thought I was going on a camping trip. And he took everything out of there. And he said, no, I had a poncho in there and everything, poncho. And he says, no, we can't, none of this stuff, just get it out of here. So he shoved all that stuff over to one side, and he brought out a case of sea rations, and he started rummaging through them. The first thing he did was take the little can opener out of the sea ration pack. It was within every sea ration pack a little metal can opener to open up the can. And he took that and he threaded it around through a piece of parachute cord and knotted it on there. And he goes, that's so you don't lose this. All the cans in the world aren't going to help you if you can't open them. And now he's rummaging around through the whole box, new box of sea rations. Well, I say new. I don't know how old it was. I'll bet that stuff was left over. Some of it was left over from the Korean War. Anyway, it was a box of sea rations. They dumped that out, and he was rummaging through it. He goes, well, this is okay to eat. It's just beanies and weenies you want, maybe spaghetti and rocks, fruitcake. Take some fruitcake, chocolate bars if you want. He goes, most of this other stuff, isn't worth eating. And he shoved the nearly full box off to the side, and he said, we can't heat any of this up, so it's got to be edible cold. And I asked him, I said, how about the freeze dry stuff? That's not bad. He goes, yeah, I got a whole box of it underneath my cot here, and he pulls out a freeze a bag of I don't know, spaghetti or something, spaghetti and meatballs. And it was, it's light and it looks good. He said the problem with it is it takes up a lot of water. If we're running low on water, we can't eat that. So we never take that stuff. It was a good idea, for back in the rear, but it doesn't work too well for us out in the bush. So, that stuff went away. So now he starts taking the cans, and he says, give me your socks. And I had been given like 10 pairs of socks from the supply hooch. And he took each can, a can of fruitcake, and he wrapped it in a sock. And he said, that's to prevent them we don't want them to be clinking around inside your pack. And he did that with every single piece of food that was in there. And he said, if I were you, I wouldn't take a lot of food. Just take what you need, enough for 7 days, 2 meals, light meals, 7 days. Don't take any more with that. It's just going to be too much weight for you to carry. And you don't want to spend that weight. If you want to be carrying something, you want it to be bullets. You want it to be somebody who can help you out there. So he packed up my pack. He threw that poncho that I had in there out. He said, no, we don't use that. That makes too much noise. It rustles in the bush. He goes, you got to get one of these. I got an extra one. I'll give you. And he brought out a silk blanket, maybe a small blanket, not very big at all. It was green, camouflage green, and I later, knew you could buy those from the Gooks in Da Nang. They would sell it. They'd even sell embroidered ones, with pictures of Vietnam on them or other things. But this one was just plain, and he folded that up and put that on top. Some other things that he thought I needed went into the pack, but mainly food. He mentioned that some guys carry a lot of water, like extra water in there. And he said the more of that stuff you hump, the thirstier you get. And he said, forget about putting any ammo in there. He goes, you're not going to be able to get to it in time. You know, whatever ammo we have, grenades or, you know, machine gun rounds or whatever, you know, you got to have that on you so you can get at it right away. And that was his advice. So he finished with that, and he goes, now we'll work on your web gear. Well, the web gear was a harness that we wore, and he started took my K-bar that he had given me, and he taped it upside down on my shoulder harness, and he said, that's the way I like it. He said, other people put it between their legs or something. I like it right here where I can, in one pull, I can get at it, and he put that on there. And then the Fernandez came in, and he had a whole bunch of ammunition in boxes, and he stacked that up by the door, and the men were rummaging through that. And they had one for M16 rounds, and another for grenades, smoke. We had, and a chief showed me how he liked to set up his gear. He had a phrase. He had a phrase for it. He called it, "This is how I like my gear to hang," he said. And I had the ammunition packets, and I had actually my magazines were in there, and I had started filling them up. And he goes, took all of that stuff, and he took those bullets out of there. And he said, no, we only use fresh ammo. He goes, you don't know how long that other stuff has been sitting there. Only use fresh ammo each time we go out. And they said, you only put 18 rounds in these magazines. You don't put 20 rounds in because the spring there will compress. It'll jam. You don't want that. 18 rounds, no more. And he started flipping them in. And he said, you can finish that later. And he took one of those ammunition canisters that we would clip to our web gear, and he showed me how to put 4 into the ammunition canister there, the web gear, and another one lengthwise this way. And he had four of them sticking up, and then another one on top. And then you could buckle that down, and you'd have 5 magazines, each with 18 rounds in a canister. I don't know what you'd call them, an ammunition canister, I guess you'd call it. Anyway, and we had. He showed me that he wanted 2 of those on either side of hanging by my belt, and there was space. But when he clipped those onto the belt, he made enough space for a grenade. So there were 2 places for a grenade on either side of my ammunition canisters, and then he showed me how to put 2 grenades on my shoulder harness. And then a smoke as well, 1 smoke. And he made sure, he asked the other guys, so what smoke are you carrying? And one said yellow, one said red, and another one said white. So he gave me a yellow one. And he said that he would do that is when we were going to be extracted, we'll throw the smoke, and the chopper pilot will see, I spot red smoke, and if that's correct, if that was the red, if we did the red smoke, then he knew it was safe. Otherwise, it could be the North Vietnamese would throw out smoke, but they wouldn't know what color to throw and wouldn't know how to verify it. So, but they do that to entice the pilot into an area where they had a machine gun set up. So, and we carried that's at least 1 smoke. And now he went over to that ammunition area again, and he he brought out a claymore, and he said, "You see, this claymore, has two blasting caps, one on either side, and we can do better than that," he said. And with that, he took out his K-bar and he sliced this thing right through the plastic and right through the C4, right down the middle. And he goes, "Now I've got one and you've got one." And he took that and he put it in my pack with a detonator and the blasting caps and the wire. He goes, "We might need that." He goes, "And take some more of the C4." And then he had packets of C4 and some blasting some det cord, and some more blasting caps. And he took this package of C4 that was encased in plastic, a little brick of C4, and he wrapped it with a det cord around it tightly, and he put the blasting caps in another packet, away from the det cord. And he told me that the way we would be using that C4 probably to blast extraction zone if we needed to get out in a hurry. Well, we would take the C4, the block of C4, and attach to the tree and wrap det cord around it, and then go down to another tree and do the same thing with that, and then there'd be a daisy chain of explosives. And so once we set off that detonator, the det cord would go like a fuse, and it would ignite the C4, it'd blast the C4, and continue down to the next tree, and that would go. And over time, I got really good at doing that. I could fell a tree, just as well as the best axeman in Maine. And it only took a second. It took a few minutes, but not much. Chief finished with that, and he asked me for my rifle. And he took some camouflage tape that he had, and he made sure the rifle was unloaded, checked it, and he wrapped some camouflage tape around the handguard for the barrel to conceal it, and around the stock as well, those little air holes that it had. And he said, "Now when we go out to test fire the weapons, after the weapons are test fired, take a little of this tape and just put a little bit over the muzzle. That'll prevent it from dirt getting in there." He said, "And it'll just blow off at the first shot." He goes, "You don't want to put a lot on there because then it'll smoke and it'll give away your position." He was just loaded with stuff like this. I mean, he had been in the field for quite a while, I guess about 7 months, 8 months. And, the information just poured out of him, the font of knowledge and he was giving it all to me. So he finished. I thought we were finished, and he said, "Okay, put your gear on." And with that, he goes, "Give me your dog tags," and I gave him my dog tags, and he wrapped that camouflage tape around the dog tags and strung the dog tags around that parachute cord with my can opener, and put that on. He said, "That's to prevent the dog tags from clinking in the bush, and we don't want anything clinking." And I put my gear on, and he looked at it, and he adjusted things left and right. And he goes, "Jump up and down." I jumped up and down, and he heard some noise, and some straps on there and buckles, and he wrapped those in tape. "Do it again, do it again, do it again," until he couldn't hear anything. And then he showed me how he holds his M16, which was sort of to lay it on the keep my arm and lay the M16 on my ammunition canisters there. And he said, some guys, will tape two magazines together, one underneath the other, and that way, if they use up one, they just flip the extraction. The other one, the magazines will come out, and they just flip it over, and now the next one's ready to go. So it only takes a second. He goes, I don't advise doing that. He says, I think it upsets the weight of the balance of the weapon. So I wouldn't do that if I were you. But you'll see other guys do it, and they swear by it. But if it was me, I wouldn't do it. And Fernandez, here's what's going on over there, and he says, yeah, the AK that has a nice banana clip on it. It'll fire 30 rounds. Now here we are with 18. And Garcia goes, yeah, not only that, but they fire a lot slower. Bang, 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 bang. Ours, you fire on a full automatic, goes zip. So they had a little conversation there about the efficiency of the various weapons. These guys were experts, experts on it. So that finally he was satisfied. I was satisfied that I was going to be as quiet as I possibly could, at least in terms of the gear. But I had a lot to learn, and my lessons continued the next day, and 2 days from there, and as we went out in the field. So I'll tell you about that in another video. Thank you.